This movie gives a brief overview of the strategy for choosing your row operations, no matter what it is you're trying to do, whether it's to solve a system or to find an inverse. Remember, there are three primary kinds of row operations. One of them is to multiply a number times a row. And the occasions when you would do that are when you're trying to produce a 1 in a column. You've just moved to work on a new column and you need to get your 1 in the proper spot. The second kind of row operation, where you're adding a multiple of a row to another row, is done for the purpose of creating a 0. Row 3 minus 3 row 1 would be to put a 0 in row 3 using a 1 that you had already created in row 1. And finally, the swapping of two rows is done primarily when you need a 1 at a spot where you presently have a 0. You use the swap operation to swap out that row with the 0 to bring in another row into that location where there's a non-zero number that you can work with to turn into a 1. Here's a generic situation where we have cleaned up the first column and we're moving on to the second column. One very important thing to keep in mind is you never have to look beyond that. What's sitting over here is completely irrelevant. In deciding what row operations we're going to do, all we have to look at are the numbers in this column. You never have to look over beyond that in deciding your strategy. In this example, we have the 1 in column 2. We want the minus 6 and the 4 to become zeros. And again, remember the row operations that are chosen. It takes one row operation to do each. Row 1 plus 6 row 2 because this is a minus 6. Row 3 minus 4 times row 2 because this is a plus 4. These two row operations will do what you need. This one will put the 0 here. This one will put the 0 in the third row. How many row operations you have to do to clean up a column will of course depend on how many rows you're working with. In this instance, we're working with 4 rows. We have the 1 in column 3. We need zeros in these other locations, so it will take 3 row operations in order to accomplish that. 1 row operation for each 0 we're trying to produce. Here's an example where we have finished with column 1. We have finished with column 2. We're beginning to work on column 3. We would like to have a 1 where the 0 is. We can't produce a 1 there by multiplying row 3 times something. So what we do is we swap row 3 and row 4. If we swap those two rows, that will put minus 3 in that spot, and then we can turn that into a 1 by multiplying row 3 times minus a third after we've done that.